In this edition of Southern Newsweek, a Dunedin lawyer calls in her staff near the end of COVID lockdown, but it's not what you might think. A Queenstown company is in the last stages of gaining approval for the helicopter version of a flight recorder, and a leading mental health researcher says many people will be emotionally frail in the wake of COVID-19. Kia ora, I'm Melissa Barton. When Jenny Beck called in all of his staff into a meeting after the COVID-19 lockdown, the mood was anxious, but none of them were quite ready for what was going to happen next.
A Dunedin lawyer is helping the local economy by giving her staff a little bit extra in their pockets. Jenny Beck Law Principal Jenny Beck is giving each of her employees $1,000 as a way to help small businesses across the country. The idea for the bonus came after thinking about all the money she hadn't spent during the COVID-19 lockdown, and her only stipulation was the money had to be spent with small businesses.
I thought if I give a sum of money to each staff member, it would be really good, with stern words not to spend it on Trade Me or at New World or Countdown. No big recipients, just small traders, small people, small businesses. And so I said, how about you all go away for a weekend, a long weekend, and take the money with you and spend it on accommodation or food and drink or tourist kind of stuff, and just make sure you spend it wherever you go.
Beck says the reaction from the staff was amazing.
Well, I told them, and just about everyone cried. And then I felt like crying myself. They were so excited. And then, bless them, we've just had a morning tea. They put it on specially for me and gave me flowers. And a book about a biography of Jacinda Ardern. So that's fabulous, such a wonderful thing to do.
Solicitor Ashley Mitchell says it was an overwhelming gesture from her boss, and she already knew what she was going to be doing with the money.
Just yesterday I booked a trip with some of my uni friends to the Able Tasman, so yeah, we're really looking forward to that and kind of exploring a part of the country we haven't been to before.
Jenny Beck says her staff have already booked holidays across the South Island, with the money being spent with local businesses as far away as Queenstown and Kaikoura. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A Queenstown invention is in the final stages of getting approval as an official data recorder for helicopters in New Zealand. Named Eye in the Sky, the device has already been fitted in helicopter cockpits across several overseas countries.
In the future, it's possible all helicopters will carry this cockpit camera recorder. It was designed and built in New Zealand for over-the-top helicopters after what was a personal tragedy for CEO Louisa Patterson.
We designed it on the recommendation of an accident report that my son was tragically killed in, where the Transport Accident Investigator Commission said should the aircraft have been fitted with a cockpit audio visual camera device, then they would have been able to establish why the aircraft broke up in flight.
Patterson's son James and his instructor Steve Coombe were both killed when their Robinson R44 incurred a mast bump incident in 2015. However, she says the black box recorder, which is called Eye in the Sky, has applications well beyond just helping investigate aircraft accidents.
We found it to be very proactive and very great in raising our safety standards. For example, you might have an intermittent engineering fault, and it'll be picked up by the engineers when you replay the footage to them. They can solve a mystery really quickly. You may be able to use it for debriefing pilots or training prior to going up into the mountains. You can use it for closing occurrences. So there's all sorts of positive things that can be used for on a daily basis.
Patterson says they've trialled the cockpit camera recorder, and official approval to fit the device into helicopters is just around the corner. In Queenstown, the South Today.
A leading mental health researcher says the mental health of the nation is taking a hammering during the COVID-19 pandemic. Professor Sunny Collins has an extensive background in the field of mental health and believes many people are struggling to cope with lifestyle changes.
Professor Sunny Collins has many years of experience in the mental health field and believes the psychological fallout from COVID-19 will be wide-reaching.
This, from a mental health point of view, this is going to go on for a long time.
Professor Collins recently caught up with ODT features reporter Bruce Munro from her Auckland office. and says the changes to daily life have affected everyone.
I think it's pretty clear that that the pandemic is having a mental health impact in real time on everybody. We've all had to make significant changes to our lives, our plans, how we relate to each other in our important relationships, how we do life.
She says where the country was in lockdown for a number of weeks, the changes to everyday routines were stressful, and stress can have a negative impact on mental health.
Change is a stress. So, and of course, there have been many people who have been really vulnerable because of their home and domestic and relationship circumstances, because they've lost employment or they've been worried that they would lose employment, because with loss of income, there is the threat of not being able to feed their families, not having a suitable roof over their heads, and so on and so forth.
While the country is beginning to get back to a new normal, for many people that means being unemployed or being frightened of losing their jobs. Professor Collins says the fallout from COVID-19 will be felt for a long time to come.
I would imagine probably for several years at least, some significant mental health impacts, particularly for people who have accumulated, who begin to accumulate multiple stresses over time.
She says work-related stress, whether it's becoming unemployed or facing the threat of losing your job, will impact the nation's mental health for months, if not years. In Dunedin, the South Today.
The man who stabbed a miniature horse 41 times, eventually killing the animal, has been jailed for 2.5 years. Reginald Robert Ozan was sentenced in the Dunedin District Court recently after pleading guilty to a charge of willfully ill-treating an animal earlier this year.
More than a year after the brutal stabbing and eventual death of Star the miniature horse shocked the nation, the man responsible has been sentenced for his crime. 50-year-old Reginald Robert Ozan was sentenced in the Dunedin District Court today to 2.5 years in jail for stabbing the animal 41 times in Waitati last year. Star's owner Mandy Mayhem said outside the court the sentence was not enough for what Ozan had done.
I have to be honest, we're disappointed. I honestly think, what would it take to get the maximum sentence? I mean, this is so brutal and horrific, and nothing compares to this. There was nothing else to go by. I don't know if I just don't understand the legal system, but for us, we really wanted him to get the maximum.
In court, Mayhem told the judge how Ozan had come to her home uninvited shortly after the vicious stabbing.
I was looking at him and his fingernails, and I just kept thinking, is that blood? I just was fixated with his hands going, oh my God, oh my God.
Detective Sergeant Chris Henderson thanked the public for their assistance during the investigation and said the response for information was unprecedented.
This inquiry, I've never had so much Crime Stoppers information come through as what happened for this case. So that just gives you an indication of just how much the whole community were horrified by what occurred.
Henderson says the investigation was extremely thorough, with a number of suspects being looked into.
We had a number of suspects, and Reg was obviously one of them, and we just carried on and did a methodical investigation, and at the end of the day we got to where we were.
Outside of court, a vigil was held for Star, with many calling for tougher sentences for animal cruelty. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Coming up on Southern Newsweek, an international protest movement comes to Queenstown and a nationwide retailer is set to close a store in Dunedin. So see you after the break. Welcome back. Demonstrators gathered by the Memorial Arch in Queenstown this week in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. The protest is a small part of a global reaction to the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, America in late May. And a warning, this story contains graphic images.
About 150 people gathered at Queenstown's Memorial Arch just before 1 p.m. in a show of respect for African-American man George Floyd, who died in police custody in America a fortnight ago. George Floyd died after a police officer knelt on his neck for nearly 9 minutes. Organisers of today's protest in Queenstown hope it gets the message across peacefully.
I sincerely hope that people leave here today and are able to find some resources to educate themselves about what's really happening, not just in the United States but everywhere in the world where there's police brutality against racism.
Darnella Fraser's Facebook footage of the incident has looped around the globe, triggering sometimes violent protests around the world. And it's not the first time an assault on a person of colour has been filmed, sparking protest. In 1991, the beating of Rodney King by a group of police officers sparked riots across the US. Co-organiser of today's rally in Queenstown, Victoria Lenton, says it's scenes like those of a fortnight ago that are all too familiar across the world.
It was the loss of lives of each name that we're reading is a human life that has been taken at a variety of ages over a variety of decades. And we just thought it was really important to show New Zealand, our brothers and sisters in the States, that they're not alone and that we see them, we hear them, and we want to show them that they matter.
Names of those who've died in police custody were read out, while a crowd of around 100 stood in silence, holding placards. Today's protest in Queenstown was peaceful, and there was almost no police presence. In Queenstown, the South Today.
A major Dunedin city centre discount retailer is planning to close its doors in 2 months. The warehouse on McLagan Street could be shut by August as the company grapples with a shift to online retail.
The sun is setting on Dunedin's original Big Red Barn, which is set to close in August, jeopardising 42 jobs. The warehouse started off in Dunedin as a small discount store in the early 90s in the DIC building, selling items such as plastic chairs, 3-hour VHS tapes and Arc Rock cups. It was accessed by an escalator from what is now the back of Dunedin's public art gallery. Another discount store called Sharky's did not last, but the warehouse went on to open 3 large stores across Dunedin. The first purpose-built The Warehouse store in Dunedin Central City is now one of 6 The Warehouse and Noel Leeming stores to close across the country, with a loss of over 1,000 jobs. Local shopper Bernadette Ford blames the proposed closure on the City Council's poor support of retail.
I am so disappointed. I mean, it just seems to me like Dunedin's had a succession of ineffective councils, and I'm so disappointed to see what's happening here. Yeah. Just one thing's closing after another, and there's nothing being done to replace it.
Another shopper, Anthony Grace, says it's unfair on the staff, especially with the country's move to alert level 1.
What the government say about level 1, I think there should be a good chance that throughout whole New Zealand that everyone keeps their jobs and everything's back to normal. So I think these guys deserve a chance. They work, they got bills to pay.
The warehouse says the company needed to move its agile retail model, presumably with more online-based shopping. Kmart has expressed an interest in taking over the site, but retail industry insiders say it's unlikely the warehouse would help out a competitor. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Winter has sometimes been called a panel beater's playground, as wintry road conditions frequently catch motorists out, resulting in a trip to the body shop. The NZTA, Police Road Safety Team and one of Otago's favourite rally drivers strongly advise caution to all.
With winter here and the possibility of more weather like this, the New Zealand Transport Agency, police and a local rally driving legend are hoping drivers can do everything possible to stay safe this year.
Well, certainly it's a good opportunity now as we move into chillier mornings to make sure that our vehicles are in really good condition. So that would include making sure that your window wipers are healthy and that your headlights are working and that your demister is operational.
I guess the best thing for people to do is to prepare. either with information about road conditions or looking at the vehicle that they're going to be driving out on the roads and making sure that it's ready for winter conditions as well.
Come winter, your car safety, your car preparation is probably a good thing to start at. Getting your lights on early in the morning and late at night, or just on dusk. It's important even when it's just in that sunstrike time when the sun's really low.
Inspector Amelia Steele says ice is one of the greatest contributors to road collisions.
Definitely in Southern District, it's the ice and black ice that contribute to a lot of our crashes in particularly city streets, suburban areas.
Peter Brown is the NZTA's Journey Manager and says people should make themselves aware of road conditions before starting out.
New Zealand Transport Agency has a website where people can get information on the journey that they plan. It's called Journey Planner. Around Dunedin City itself, people can go to the Dunedin City Council website and get good information there.
Speaking from her years of experience behind the wheel of rally cars, Emma Gilmore has sound advice for people who find themselves losing traction on ice.
And get off the brake and reapply it, so almost do an emergency brake. Like most modern cars now have ABS brakes, but doing an emergency pumping of the pedal yourself will also help in ice, because ABS, as it hits ice, it still won't get grip as it tries to stop.
Gilmore says if you're having trouble standing up on ice, your car will have trouble with traction too. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Terrace volunteer firefighters were handed the keys to a shiny new fire appliance recently. The four-wheel drive truck replaces the current appliance, which is almost 40 years old.
Locker space, miles of locker space.
Fens trainer Ian Richards shows the Terrace Volunteer Fire Brigade their new $300,000 fire appliance, which was delivered last week.
Some of its unique features, it carries 3,000 litres of water, which is twice the capacity of the current truck. It's four-wheel drive capable, so over the Lindis Pass, which is obviously a big percentage of Terrace's calls, and it provides an awesome service for the community of Terrace and surrounding areas.
Terrace Brigade Controller Mark Davidson says he's pleased to see their current 39-year-old vehicle finally being replaced.
It's starting to show its age. There's little things starting to go wrong, so it's time's up. So now we've got something new, so it'll see me out.
Vegetation fires and car crashes, especially on the icy and windy Lindis Pass, have been a major source for call-outs, but there's now a shift to using volunteer fire brigades as first responders to rural medical emergencies.
When there are issues in the community, when people call for an ambulance, then the fire service is responded as well, so we can provide immediate care until the arrival of an ambulance service. So yeah, it's a bit of everything. We're sort of, if people are not sure who to call, we call fire and emergency, and a group of boys and girls give up their time to come and help people.
And it's hoped the new vehicle will provide inspiration for more people to volunteer their services to the brigade.
The new fire engine always creates a wee bit of interest in the community, and we're hoping that more people might consider joining. It is an awesome community project to be involved as a volunteer firefighter. It's a lot of laughs as well as sad times, but there's also some good things. So I hope people out there that may be thinking about doing something for the community might stick their hand up.
In Terrace, the South Today.
After the break, a government scheme is set to offer employment in Central Otago, and live rugby in front of an audience is set to become a world first in Dunedin, so catch you after the break. Thanks for staying with us. A government cash injection has created 16 jobs removing wilding pines in Queenstown. The announcement is expected to be the first round of funding being spent in Queenstown on wilding tree control and will help address unemployment in the area.
Wilding pines, larches and firs in the Queenstown area, look out. The government has promised $100 million to continue the work being done by community groups over the last 15 years in removing the introduced trees.
Government has committed $100 million to boost the whole program, and firstly and foremost, of course, to use the talents and the capability of people in Queenstown here to get jobs, moving from tourism into wild and pine control. It'll be a positive aspect and outcome for the environment, and we're making use of the skills that have been available with the workforce here.
The cash injection has already created 16 jobs in Queenstown, an area forecast to be hard hit by economic downturn. O'Connor suggests most of the money will fund existing eradication programs.
Clearly, we have to be able to spend the money wisely, and we can't, ramp this up, in a way that it falls over. So, building capability, the supervision, the health and safety component, and making sure that there's enough people to do the job is really important.
Small remnants of native beech forest can still be seen in gullies around the Skippers Canyon area, but much of the land is now native tussock following centuries of burning. QLDC forest expert Brianna Pringle says they're making good progress in stopping exotic trees taking over the landscape.
We're looking at trying to get rid of the mature seeding trees. They're the ones that have the most cones and seed on them. So part of our program is looking at these mature trees, getting rid of them first, and then we're going to clear areas and trying to clear trees before they reach a coning age where they spread further.
The government's funding is planned to create hundreds of jobs. Exactly how much of the $100 million will go towards Queenstown is yet to be determined. In Queenstown, the South Today.
The first game of the Super Rugby Aotearoa competition is set to kick off at Forsyth Bar Stadium. The match signals the restarting of a revamped Super Rugby competition and has been heralded as a world's first.
Forsyth Bar Stadium CEO Roger Clark and Dunedin Venue CEO Terry Davies are ecstatic with the news that fans will be allowed to attend this Saturday's rugby game. As their shirts say, it will be a world-first gathering of ticket-paying spectators since COVID-19.
After what we've been through as a country and what we're still going through in the world, I think it's a pretty significant evening and we'll be treating it that way.
The Highlanders, seen here practising last week, will kick off the new Super Rugby Aotearoa competition with a home game against the Chiefs in a stadium that was originally planned to be empty of spectators.
Oh yeah, it's just awesome, mate. There's been a lot of scenarios been planned, but this was obviously always going to be the best one, and so yeah, incredibly excited for all the fans and everybody in the country really.
Davies says home games at the stadium always have a positive impact on the city's economy.
It's dramatic right through. Not only here, it's the people that spread back up to Octagon afterwards to have a drink. It's having coffee and a meal. The economic impact flow is significant.
And he's hopeful the stadium could even become part of a concert circuit with our closest neighbour.
We'll need Australia to open up, so if we can work with Australia at some stage, I think that might give us better opportunities to get touring artists from overseas to bunker down in Australia and play Australia-New Zealand. But who knows? I mean, a week's time things could change dramatically.
The game is set for a 7:05 kick-off on Saturday, with tickets already on sale, starting at $6 for children and $20 for adults. In Dunedin, the South Today.
After 2 months of no action, sporting codes across the South are getting ready for a later than usual start to their seasons. Sports grounds in Queenstown have been full of keen footballers preparing for the season ahead.
Football fever is back in the Wakatipu after the COVID-19 lockdown kicked the start of the season into touch. With just 3 weeks until their season kicks off, the boys from the Queenstown Associated FC were given a pre-season runaround by team manager Jamie Whitmarsh.
We're back into our pre-season training, which is a reduced training on the back of COVID and our ability to back and train, and we're preparing for our new season, which starts on the 20th of June away in Wanaka. So we're just in that period where we're getting ready for the new season.
Despite the late start to the season, Whitmarsh says everyone's excited to be back training and the players are enjoying being back on the pitch together.
It's always an exciting time when we get to the start of the season. Of course, that was broken up by the virus. We was ready to go probably at the time that it hit. So look, it's good to be back. It's nice to see everyone, and I think everyone's in fine fettle. So it's promising.
Whitmarsh says he's quietly confident from what he has seen from the new boys, and believes the team will be competitive once the season gets up and running.
Yeah, we're always competitive, and I think they look in good shape. But obviously we're playing a little bit of catch up, like everybody else will be. So look, I'm quietly confident, but I always am.
The Otago Daily Times Southern Premier League kicks off on June 20, with the Dunedin Women's Premier League starting on the same day. In Queenstown, the South today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Have a great night. Ka kite anō.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.